Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Oh, Shabbat shalom, Sister Gabriel. I'm going to get started here. We're going to look at today a few things. We wanted to look at Exodus 18, 1 through 19, verse 6. A few verses in Isaiah chapter 6, 1 through 13. Chapter 33, verse 13. And chapter 61, 6 through 11. And we also will look at Romans chapter 8, 19 through 38. There's a few things, kind of themes, I guess, we see inside of this Torah portion that begins in Exodus. And when we look at, all of these verses together, I guess we see interestingly enough, we see a common theme through it all. I guess essentially what we'll be looking at is aspects of conversion and examples of adoption. And what that looks like according to the scriptures. So, to begin, let me just put this thing on here. We'll begin by reading Exodus here. Exodus 18, verse 1. Through 19, verse 6. Okay. When Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that Elohim had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, and that Yahweh had brought Israel out of Egypt, then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her back, and her two sons, of which the name of the one was Gershom, for he said, I have been an alien in a strange land, and the name of the other was Eleazar, for the name of my father said he was mine help, and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife unto Moses into the wilderness, where he encamped at the mount of Elohim. And he said unto Moses, I, thy father-in-law Jethro, am come unto thee, and thy wife, and her two sons with her. And Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, and did obeisance, and kissed him, and they asked each other of their welfare, and they came into the tent. And Moses told his father-in-law all that Yahweh had done unto Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and all the travail that had come upon them by the way, and how Yahweh delivered them. Jethro rejoiced for all the goodness which Yahweh had done to Israel, whom he had delivered out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Jethro said, Blessed be Yahweh, blessed be Yahweh, who have delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of Pharaoh, who have delivered the people from underneath the hand of the Egyptians. Verse 11, Now I know that Yahweh is greater than all gods, for in the thing wherein they dealt proudly, he was above them. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took a burnt offering and sacrifices for Elohim, and Aaron came and all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law before Elohim. And it came to pass on the morrow that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood by Moses from the morning unto evening. And when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did to the people, he said, What is this thing that thou does to the people? Why sit thou thyself alone, and all the people stand by thee from morning unto evening? And Moses said unto his father-in-law, Because the people come unto me to inquire of Elohim. When they have a matter, they come unto me, and I judge between one and another, and I do make them know the statutes of Elohim and his laws. And Moses' father-in-law said unto him, That thing that thou do is not good. Thou wilt surely wear away, both thou and this people that is with thee, for this thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone. Hearken now unto my voice, I will give thee counsel, and Elohim shall be with thee. Be thou for the people to Be thou for the people to Elohim, that thou mayest bring the causes unto Elohim, and thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws, and shalt show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear Elohim, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands and rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. And let them judge the people at all seasons, and it shall be that every great matter they shall bring unto thee, but every small matter they shall judge. So shall it be easier for thyself, and they shall bear the burden with thee. If thou shalt do this thing, and Elohim command thee so, then thou shalt be able to endure, and all this people shall also go to their place in peace. So Moses hearkened to the voice of his father-in-law, and did all that he had said. And Moses chose able men out of all Israel, and made them heads over the people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. And they judged the people at all seasons. The hard causes they brought unto Moses, but every small matter they judged themselves. And Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went his way into his own land. I'll just read these next 6 verses from chapter 19. In the third month, when the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai. For they were departed from Rephidim, and were come to the desert of Sinai, and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Israel camped before the mount. And Moses went up unto Elohim, and Yahweh called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel, You have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and now I bear you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine, and you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. Hallelujah. Okay. So we'll go back over here to chapter 18. We look over at chapter 18. We see it begins off there speaking about Jethro, the priest of Midian. Of course, Jethro being the father-in-law of Moses, the father of Zipporah. Seems as if as all of the Exodus was happening, the movement from the people, it seems as if Moses' wife and his children went away with Jethro, because here we see that as they're moving towards the destination, they're moving towards Sinai there, and along comes Jethro and Moses' wife, and how it describes here as her two sons with her. But we see that again, it calls Jethro a priest of Midian. He was obviously he had a type of holiness, I would say. He was this priest of Midian. Who knows what type of religious practices they had, in the land where Jethro was. Even though we can go back and trace the lineage back to Abraham in terms of Israel and Midian, I still wouldn't say that it was safe to say that that the Midianites were doing the same thing that Israel was doing, just because they had that common lineage. But what we do see from the text, we see that first of all, Jethro comes to where Moses is because of the fact that he heard what happened. He heard about the Exodus. He heard about the things that Yahweh had did for the people, and the great and mighty miracles that he performed in order to deliver the people from Israel. So he comes, from Egypt, yeah. And so he comes and gets the first-hand account from Moses, and I guess hearing it firsthand did more for him than what whatever it was that got him to want to seek after Moses in the first place, because when we look over in verse 8, where it says, and Jethro rejoiced, it said, for all the goodness which Yahweh had done to Israel, whom he had delivered out of the hand of the Egyptians. What?
You can mute Sister.
Oh yeah, Sister, can she hear me? Sister Sarah, can you mute your microphone there?
Okay, sorry.
No problem. Okay, so
I think it did more for Jethro than it did for people who went through.
Well,
I mean, even though he didn't stay, but
yeah, he didn't stay with him. I guess he probably had his own responsibilities that he had to deal with over in Midian. But
I mean,
we do say that he heard what happened and believed based on what he heard.
But the people who actually lived through it, they had a problem believing.
Well,
like they had a problem believing that Yahweh would be able to get them over the Red Sea and bringing them into the land and all the rest of that.
Yeah. Which was interesting because these people who actually witnessed the miracles, they witnessed the well, you can't really compare the two. You can't really compare the two faiths because we don't see Jethro's faith being tested, I guess. But what we do see is that there is a type of transformation or conversion thing that happens with him, where he is able to confess Yahweh as Elohim, and at least confess his greatness over all other gods. I'm not sure if that's the same thing as denouncing the other gods, but it seems as if he's putting him over other gods. I mean, it can be implied that perhaps he denounced the other ones in doing so. But in this, we can see an example of what the conversion process looks like, because there's hearing, of course, involved. There's hearing involved, but there is a reaction. There is a proper response that goes along with the hearing, right? Because we can look at someone else who heard about what happened with Israel in Egypt, but the response was obviously different. If we look back at what we looked at last week in chapter 17 with Amalek, the Amalekites too must have heard of what went on with the Exodus from Egypt and all of the things that Yahweh had done for the people. Yeah. But they had a response. They looked at it as an opportunity to attack this people, rather than doing what it seems as if Jethro is doing here, as in terms of understanding who Yahweh is. So we see that there was what Amalek did, what the Amalekites did. They we can't say heard. We can say that they heard of Yahweh. They heard of the things that Yahweh had done. we could say that they heard of the greatness and the mighty works of Yahweh, but their response was obviously different. So we can take from that in terms of looking at what conversion looks like. There's hearing involved. You hear, but there's also believing involved. If the Amalekites would have heard with believing, they obviously wouldn't have attacked. They obviously wouldn't have attacked Israel. They, if they would have had the proper response to the thing that they heard, maybe they would have came and tried to build an alliance or something with Israel, as opposed to this thing that they have done. But then on the opposite side of that, we can look and see what Jethro did in terms of the thing that Jethro heard caused him to change. It caused him to kind of rethink his situation. It had an effect on his life and how he thought about things. It's obvious, from him coming from this other place of him dealing with, these other gods. But at very least, we're able to see that here with what Jethro, his response here, he is able to say that Yahweh is greater than all the other gods, which in and of itself, when you think about it, really is a great kind of a realization to have.
Especially because, from a place with a lot of them.
Right, and I think that the first thing that you would have to do, really truly follow after Yahweh, is to actually put him on top. And then I guess the more you kind of that relationship is developed, I guess you start to understand that
there isn't any more.
They don't really. They're not really. They're really insignificant in comparison. But we see that there in terms of part of this conversion process, in terms of he heard about the goodness of Yahweh. He heard about the character of Yahweh. He heard about the thing that he had done, and that was enough to really change his heart and mind and cause him to move in another direction. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Comments? Questions? We see down in verse 12, we see that Jethro, takes an offering. He begins to actually worship Yahweh. So we see that, as a result of the hearing, there is a believing that happens, and then there's also an action piece that's involved as well. He didn't just say, well, I believe that your God is the God of all and greater than all the rest. He also brought that sacrifice, which of course shows that he basically put his money where his mouth is, so to speak.
It would have been nice just to see that he kind of stayed with the people, I guess. But
well, I think that
his own people.
I think that it was think it probably was impractical probably for him to, because you don't know what his family situation was back where he was at, you know? Seemed as if he was bringing his daughter and his
dropping them off
and his grandkids over, dropping them off and heading back is what it seems like. That's what it looks like. Anyway. Okay, so the other thing that we see here is the inclusion that's involved in the following of Yahweh. We see clearly that Jethro is not an Israelite. We see clearly that he is he's a Midian. He's a Midianite. He's from another nation. He's not Israel. Period. But then we see, and I always like to bring this up because to me it seems like it's such an amazing point in regards to Yahweh's his look at this. We see how Yahweh is inclusive of those who follow after him. He only is looking for obedience, genuine obedience, and we see Jethro has a place in Torah higher than any human being. And he's not an Israelite.
And I was thinking he might not have stayed. I mean, he wasn't an Israelite when he came. He heard the things that his son-in-law was doing, and he came to see for himself all the things that was that he heard of, and he started believing. And I believe the reason why he went back home, I'm saying for myself, that he may want him to teach to others. Mm-hmm. You know, now he believe, now he can convert the ones that he had back at home.
That's true. He was a priest.
So. Yeah, I mean, I think that to me, I feel like that is really, you know, that's what you got to take away from this. You got to be able to see that, you know, he had these responsibilities back wherever he came from. Mm-hmm. Him being this person who had this revelation over here, you know, the first part of it was just him even coming to even see about it in the first place. But then after getting that first-hand experience and seeing how he was really changed about the thought process, I think the natural progression of that is to share this knowledge, especially him being this priest, you know, with the people back. Now we know that we can know historically that his cause probably wasn't very successful because the Midianites, you know, they stayed being the Midianites
forever.
Yeah, and they even joined up with other adversaries against Israel. So as a whole, right, we could say that his mission wasn't successful, but it seems as if that is probably what he had did. But what I was saying is that in terms of this advice that he gives, to Moses becomes Torah law. It becomes Torah law.
Splitting up hundreds and thousands.
Right. Thousands and hundreds and the whole idea of judges and you know the elders and so on and so forth is given to Moses by Jethro. So when it comes to people who want to have things to say about about Gentiles and so on and so forth, to me, this is probably one of the greatest scriptures that you could look to and see where a Gentile gives you Torah law. Right? The entire Torah is given to us by Yahweh exclusively, except for this commandment here that is given by Jethro, the Midianite. So to me, I feel like it's kind of a big deal, but it's showing you that Yahweh's right. He's not a respecter of persons, but it's showing you that he deals with those who will have a heart to follow after him, whether you're of the chosen people or not. And I always like to point that out whenever I see that there, because it's pretty it's a pretty huge thing to say that this man, this non-Israelite man, can say that he added to the establishment of what Torah is. So saying all that takes us down to the end of the chapter. The chapter 18 basically deals with what Jethro added, and then in the beginning of 19 we see how Moses then begins to go up to the mount, and where the law is about to come forth, the Ten Commandments. Definitely talk more about that next week. But I guess we could probably just go ahead and go up into Isaiah, because there's a few things that we can look at in Isaiah that also deal with this whole idea of the conversion process, in terms of Yahweh dealing with those that are obedient unto him. So if we turn over to, if anybody has any questions or comments on Exodus, we'll look over in Isaiah chapter 6.
One to 13. 6, 1 to 13.
Yeah. Are you gonna read that?
I hear it.
All right. Well, let me see. 6, 1 through 13. Oh, that's the whole chapter. Okay, go ahead, read it. Nice and loud.
In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also Yahweh sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphims. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. And one cried unto another, and said, Holy, holy, holy is Yahweh of hosts. The whole earth is full of his abundance. And the posts of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Then said I, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of the people of unclean lips. For mine have seen the King, Yahweh of hosts. Then flew one of the seraphims unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongues from off the altar. And he laid it upon my mouth, and said, Lo, this hath touched my lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin purged. Also I heard the voice of Yahweh saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then said I, Here am I, send me. And he said, Go and tell this people, Hear ye indeed, but understand not, and see ye indeed, but perceive not. Make the heart of this people fat, and make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert, and be healed. Then said I, Yahweh, how long? And he answered, Unto the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate. And Yahweh have removed men far away, and there be a great forsaken in the midst of the land. But yet in it shall be a tenth, and it shall return, and shall be eaten as a seal tree, and as an oak, whose substance is in them. When they cast their leaves, so the holy seed shall be the substance thereof.
Okay, very good. And also 33:13 says, Hear you that are far off what I have done, and you that are near acknowledge my might. Okay, so we see, looking at this, we see something interesting going on here. We see the prophet here seeing this vision of the holies. He's actually seeing the presence of Yahweh. What's going on with these seraphim flying all over the place. With these wings and so on and so forth. And looking at this in verse, we see in that verse 5, him seeing the prophet seeing all this going on, looking at the presence of Yahweh. And then his response is in verse 5, Then said I, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For mine eyes have seen the King, Yahweh of hosts. So when we look at what's going on here, we're able to see that in a true, in an honest sight of Yahweh and who He is, you're able to see, how wretched you are as a human, right? So we see here the prophet here is looking at the situation, getting an understanding of who Yahweh is based on this vision that he's having, and then being able to then look at himself and get some type of a honest kind of reflection of what he is based on what Yahweh is. Now, if we look back at Amalek, where if he would have really had the proper response, seeing who Yahweh was would have caused him to feel a certain kind of way, right? But then, that's not the conversion response, what we see with Amalek. But when we look back at Jethro, where he is able to get this kind of a glimpse, and it's a different kind of a glimpse, but it's still showing you the character and the power of Yahweh. It's not it's not like a direct reflection that Jethro sees. He just kind of sees what Yahweh is able to do. But it's the same concept in terms of looking and seeing this representation of what Yahweh represents. Kind of a look into his essence, and then what happens as a result.
I think Moses felt that too. Whenever he got confronted by Yahweh.
Right, you say right. That's exactly right. The exact same thing kind of happens with where Moses is he's faced with this great task that Yahweh's trying to give him, and he's like, no, I stammer, I can't, I don't know how to lead or whatever, I can't do it. Here, let my brother, put him, he just has this kind of a humble kind of I'm not worthy kind of reaction to it, and then the better Moses begins to understand who Yahweh is, there's kind of a change in Moses and how he is, and he becomes the great leader that he is, but based on that relationship that was created, and that that growth process that happened over time. But that initial response was awe and humility and humbleness and understanding, compared to the Almighty. He's just not even worthy to do anything, right? But then we see in verse 6 kind of how this carries through the process, and we see that initial kind of response to seeing that the essence or the presence of Yahweh, and the humility as a result of it. And when it goes into verse 6, where it comes to actually kind of being transformed by Yahweh, right? A transformation that happens in verse 6 and 7. Then flew one of the seraphims unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongs from off the altar. And then he laid it upon his mouth and touched his lips. And then that sin, that iniquity is taken away. And that sin is purged.
He said he was a man of unclean lips, and then he took a coal and touched his lips.
Right. The very part that he pronounced to be unclean was the part that was cleansed.
And is that because he was like a spokesperson for Yahweh?
Well, I guess
he was a prophet, so he was speaking the word of Yahweh. Thus saith Yahweh.
I guess the part of him that was his area of expertise, I guess. He was, just, saying that, that his strong point was a weak point and not worthy. He wasn't worthy to do the thing. But then again, so what we see here is this transformation, this cleansing thing that's going on. In verse 6 and 7, and then 9. Then now at verse 9, he's ready to go. Right, verse 9, after the transformation, he's ready now, right?
Yeah.
Who shall I send? Who shall I send?
Verse 8 in my Bible.
Well, verse 8 it says, "I heard the voice. Whom shall I send?" Oh yeah, it is. And then he say, "Here am I." Yeah, so it is verse 8. And then verse 9 is what he's going to go do. But the point here is that what we see is similar to what we saw with Jethro, in terms of Jethro had this realization of who Yahweh was. He changed from this idea of these many gods. He was able to see that Yahweh was over all gods. And then now he's ready to go and live for him. And then as a priest, we can just assume that he taught about the things that he had learned. So then we did the same thing here, and we look with the prophet here, where he has this vision, he sees this picture of who Yahweh is. This vivid picture of who he is, and in light of who he is, he gets an understanding of more of an understanding of who he is and his unworthiness. But then that unworthiness that he has becomes rectified by that touch that he gets from the Almighty, and then now he's changed, and now he's ready to go and do the work.
And I mean, I feel like, I hate to say it, but when people step out into ministry work or whatever type of work, and they do it and they're not at a place where it's their time to do it, like sometimes they come at it from a place of pride, or you know what I mean? Like, it's not like from a place where you go through, I guess, the proper channels of cleansing and different things, different experiences that you might have had. Like Isaiah, if he would have went out and started prophesying and talking to people and stuff like that, before he got that cleansing on his lips, he might have been talking about something that wasn't thus saith Yahweh, even though he was called as a prophet, because the callings, well, some people might disagree, but the callings are without repentance. So he was called to be a prophet, but if he would have went out and started doing that work without his lip getting touched, it might not have been from the right perspective.
Yeah. But we definitely see here this process of this. If there was some type of idea of unsurety or anything that needed cleansing, whether he really had unclean lips or not, after the fact, after he had that empowerment, whether that was just him being out of humbleness, or if it was authentic. The idea here is having this calling, and beyond the calling having this cleansing, and then beyond the cleansing having that push, or that kind of incentive to go and then do the work. And that's what we see in here with the prophet Isaiah in terms of this whole process of this whole conversion that we see here. Where then now he's told to go out and just do this work. Verse 11 is interesting because it says, then said I, Master, how long? And he answered, until the cities be wasted without inhabitants, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate. That seems like just forever. Until there ain't nobody to talk to. Just go out and say stuff until there ain't nobody left for you to say it to. It's basically indefinite, right? Time indefinite is the call. Which is 1,000 years. Okay, does anybody have any thoughts or comments or questions about chapter 6 of Isaiah?
Does push also mean move forward?
Yes, that's exactly right. Okay, let's go over to then 61. Isaiah 61, verse 6.
You're trying to read it?
No.
No.
Let's see here. Yeah, read that. Read 6 to 11.
Me?
Yeah. You're there, aren't you?
Yes.
Read it.
Okay. But ye shall be named the priests of Yahweh. Men shall call you the ministers of our Elohim. Ye shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, and in their riches shall ye boast yourselves. For your shame ye shall have double, and for confusion they shall rejoice in their portion. Therefore in their land they shall possess the double. Everlasting joy shall be unto them. For I, Yahweh, love judgment. I hate robbery for burnt offering. And I will direct their work in truth. And I will make an everlasting covenant with them. And their seed shall be known among the Gentiles, and their offspring among the people, and that all that see them shall acknowledge them, and they are the seed which Yahweh hath blessed. I will greatly rejoice in Yahweh. My soul shall be joyful in my Elohim. For he hath clothed me with the garments of salvation. He hath covered me with the robe of righteousness, and as a bridegroom decketh himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorneth herself with her jewels. And for as the earth bringeth forth her bud, and as the garden causeth the things that are sown into spring, in it to spring forth, so the sovereign Yahweh will cause righteousness and praise to spring forth before all the nations.
Okay, very good. So, when we look at Isaiah 61, 6 through the end of that chapter there, we see this other aspect of conversion, which includes adoption. We looked at before. We looked at it, of course. We looked at Jethro. You see where the aspects of adoption in terms of those on the outside kind of coming in and becoming part of those on the inside, mixed with this concept of conversion, this changing, this turning around, this new direction that is being walked in. So when we look over here, we see this time where it seems to be referencing a time of restoration, where it could be said that it's referring to the messianic age, and so on and so forth. But when you look at this here, of course, it begins talking about they'll be named priests of Yahweh, men shall call you ministers of Elohim. When you look and think about how, even in where it talks about in Exodus 19, where it says that, did we just read that? Yeah, we did, where it says in verse 19:5, now therefore, if you obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine, and you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. It's the same thing where it talks about it in first, I don't know if it's first or second Peter, where he says that the people are a nation of kings and priests. It's the same idea. But when we think about where we are in terms of, being in this new covenant and, truly being a nation of kings and priests and Messiah, this is where we are. This is where we are in terms of to the nations being priests of Yahweh, to the nations being ministers of our Elohim. And then here in this context in Isaiah is dealing with, it's not dealing with a people that are, this downtrodden, scattered, destroyed people. So we're not talking about, we can't put it in the context of now, because this people that it's talking about eating the riches of the Gentiles, eating the riches of the Gentiles, and their riches, and in their riches shall you boast yourself. So it's not talking about the people of Yahweh, I would say now, who are kind of just through the Spirit of Yahweh being built up slowly, in this slow process. But this is like the end result, right? This is definitely looking forward to that, that end times where, where the actual new covenant has really come to its total fulfillment. But it's interesting. The interesting part to look at when you're looking at this in terms of who is being referenced. Like, who is it talking about exactly when we look? Because there is when we look at this and what we just read, there is a you and there is a they. There's a they and there's a you. And I'm just wondering if we could get any thoughts about who is the you and who is the they in Isaiah 61, 6-11. Well, we looked in Isaiah, you read it, right? When you go through, like, say, for instance, verse 6, you shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, and in their glory shall you boast yourself. So there's a you. There's somebody who's being referenced in this chapter as if they're speaking to them specifically. You. For your shame you shall have double, and for your confusion they shall rejoice in their portion. So there's a they, right? There's a you and there's a they. So I'm saying, who's the you and who's the they? Because they shall rejoice, and then it also said they shall rejoice in their portion, therefore in their land they shall possess the double, everlasting joy shall be unto them.
So wouldn't you be the person that's speaking the word?
Which, but it's who though? Well, who is it though?
And who is the person that's speaking?
Who is the you?
Would that be the believers? You shall eat the riches of the Gentiles and the glory of you shall boast. You are ashamed. Instead of your shame, you shall double honor.
I wouldn't say that you're wrong by saying believers, but I would say it's not specific though.
You shall eat. Well, when you shall eat, is those the ones that's crossing over, right? If you shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, and in the glory you shall boast. Instead of your shame, you shall have double honor.
I'm saying that you is it got to be Israel. I'm saying you is Israel. You is Israel.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I was calling the believers.
Yeah, that's what I said. I wasn't saying that you was wrong. It was just not specific.
Name. Oh, okay.
Okay, but then now, but who's they though? Who is they?
Wouldn't that be the ones that they were converting?
All right, so if you want to say that, well, somebody who's an unconverted person, I guess it would just classify them as being a Gentile, right? So if you're gonna say they is the unconverted people who we might call Gentiles, the verse this could even say heathens. Verse 7 says, hold on, is it verse 7? No, verse 8. For I, Yahweh, love judgment. I hate robbery. For burnt offerings, I will direct their work in truth. I will make an everlasting covenant with them.
So he's still talking to the Israelites?
Well, I think that's the question. That's the question I'm asking. When he's talking about this everlasting covenant with them,
well, I believe it still will be the Israelites,
Why do you believe that?
because he was saying an everlasting covenant. If they follow his commands or his direct order,
But why he didn't say make an everlasting covenant with you?
Because he already said that before.
When?
Well, it says with them.
I'm trying to figure out who he talking to when he said everlasting covenant with them. If you're gonna say that he's
Is
talking
that just the people that are afflicted?
I'm saying if you're gonna say that them is Israel, he was already making reference to Israel before when he said you. So I'm asking,
why did he not say, "I'll make an everlasting covenant with you"?
Right.
Is what you're trying to say.
Why did he say with them? When
that's the word he decided to put in there.
No, but them or they makes it be somebody other than Israel, don't it?
well, wouldn't it be the persons that were desolate already, and then they came to the light of knowing the word?
The captives.
You're right.
Like in the first part of the chapter, he talks about he was appointed to bring the good news to the afflicted and to those who are captive, and to free the prisoners, and to proclaim the favorable year of Yahweh.
Yeah.
So he's talking.
So I was just wondering if he was talking when he said them, he's talking about the people that was afflicted and got lifted up.
Because in 4 it says, "And they shall rebuild the old ruins, and they shall rise at the former desolation." So I'm believing it is the ones that were afflicted and turned around, and he made the covenant with them.
So you just saying that is Israel that he's talking to?
No, I'm saying, was Israel afflicted? No, I'm speaking about the ones that they're going out to talk to. Like would be like myself if I was out there and I came to the truth. And he said he would give them that. Let me read this again.
I don't know, Tony. I think them and you are the same people.
You think they're the same?
Yeah, I think they're the same people.
I don't think they're the same.
Maybe you don't think that.
The only reason he's saying that is because he thinks that's what you said.
No.
That's the only reason he's saying that.
No, I just don't think it is.
Let me see your New American Standard. Let me see.
Oh, here you go. Sorry, Tony.
Okay, verse 7 in the New American Standard 61. Instead of your shame, you will have a double portion. You talking about? Well, when we go to verse 6, that you will be called priests of Yahweh, and you will be spoken of as ministers of our Elohim. So that's the you, is those that will be called priests and ministers.
Yeah.
You will eat the wealth of nations, and in their riches, the nations, in their riches, you will boast. Instead of your shame, which you did have previously, you will have a double portion.
Yeah.
Instead of humiliation, they, which in the context must be the nations, will shout for joy over their portion.
What do you mean they will shout for joy over their portion?
Well, how did it switch is what I'm saying.
Well, why would the nations shout for joy over their portion? Say that, read that one verse again.
7. Instead of your shame,
Instead of our shame,
you will have a double portion. Instead of humiliation, they,
I think they have
will shout for joy over their portion.
Because why would the nations, if we get a double portion, then that means the nations is going to lose some of their portion. So why would they be shouting for joy over their portion? Like, it seemed like if we got a double portion, we would be shouting for joy over our portion.
Well, if we want to go back even further, the strangers will stand and pasture your flocks, and foreigners will be your farmers and your vine dressers.
So are they even gonna have anything? They just gonna
Well,
be working on our stuff.
No, but what I'm saying is that you looking at it like that in terms of like a slavery kind of a thing.
Well, not slavery, but
Well-
I mean they're not gonna have a certain amount. They had a certain amount, and they're not gonna have that certain amount anymore. Because some of it's gonna go.
But okay, but what I'm saying is that we gotta think about where we are. We're not dealing in man's government, right?
But
We're
I
dealing
don't
in-
know. I don't
hold
know
on.
anyone who's gonna be rejoicing if they lost something.
Okay, you thinking about that from what perspective, though? That's
From a
what I'm trying
carnal
to say.
perspective, because the people are carnal.
All right, but
nations
I'm not
are
talking
carnal.
about. I'm not talking about that. I don't see how this is talking about that.
I mean,
if you gonna look at it from a carnal perspective, yeah, you gonna be mad. I got my stuff taken, right?
yeah, you won't be upset about that,
But,
right?
but how? I'm saying how
I'm probably gonna say token.
how can we look at this from a carnal perspective when this is obviously talking about something that's going
The
on?
nations. That's the nations. So they're the people that don't believe. So why are they going to respond in a spiritual manner?
You're the one got to ask yourself that because it's saying that they're rejoicing.
That's what I said. I think the they and the you are the same.
That doesn't make any
I
sense.
don't. See?
They have a response that seems foreign that you can't understand.
I don't understand that from any perspective. Somebody come to take my land.
Look, we're live, and this is being recorded. And you're sitting up here talking about how you can't understand how these people is having this response.
Yeah,
That's not a carnal response.
that is a carnal.
No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no, it's not a carnal
It's not a
response.
carnal response because
You
they're
can't
the
understand
nation.
how they're having it.
Yeah, I don't understand how they're having that. I'm not ashamed.
Well, you should be. You should be ashamed.
I'm not ashamed.
But I'm laughing.
I think when we look at the fullness of what's going on here, this is dealing with what we look forward to in the fulfillment of this new covenant experience. We can't look at what is being talked about in this thing that's going on, that's giving us an example of the new covenant, and looking at it from a carnal perspective, where I can't understand why they used to be on top and now
Now they're not on top anymore.
and now they're not on
Now
top,
rejoice.
but they're still rejoicing, and I can't understand why.
And you lose a battle and somebody take your stuff, and you're not gonna be happy
Right, in
about
your
that.
carnal mind, you won't be happy. But when we look at what it says at the end, the result, right?
That's the result.
For as the earth brings forth its sprouts,
Uh-huh.
and as the garden causes things sown in the spring to spring up, so Adonai Yah will call righteousness and praise to spring up before all the nations.
So maybe
So
maybe
if
they're
I
waiting. Is that
No,
like how?
hold on,
the,
wait a second.
Okay, yeah.
if I go out here and just throw some seed everywhere, and it's some fertile ground for it to grow, there ain't nothing that's gonna stop that stuff from growing and spreading. So down here he's talking about righteousness and praise going to spring up, like those things that grow naturally out in the in planting is springing up. So in other words, this thing is just shooting up from everywhere, all over the place, with no kind of limitations.
It's life.
And things coming to life.
So this is how I can understand. And Africa, please, you guys, y'all making her be even louder. Okay. So what all I'm saying is that, like, how it talks about the earth is waiting for the sons of Elohim to be revealed, or sons.
Okay, we didn't get to that part yet, but yeah.
How even how the natural is waiting for the spiritual to be revealed. So maybe that's why they could rejoice, because
I don't need a maybe. You're the one that needs a maybe.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying.
You're the
like,
one that needs to convince yourself
that
of what
maybe
needs to go on.
why the natural is waiting for the revelation of the spiritual.
All I'm saying is that based on verse 8, I don't see why it says, I will make an everlasting covenant with them. When it very well could have said, I will make an everlasting covenant with you.
So who's them?
I'm saying them is those that are not the priests, those that are not the ministers, those that are the nations. I'm saying that when you look in the context of where it starts to say them and they, it's referring to the nations.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, is there a switch, or is it just remaining true to the context that's already used it in that way? In verse 9, it says, and their seed shall be known among the nations, and their offspring among the people. All that see them shall acknowledge them, and that they are the seed which Yahweh has blessed. And I'm saying that when we look at this, and we look at what we just looked at before, we see this blessing that extends out beyond the natural people, where Yahweh is dealing with a restoration of the earth through Israel, but the whole creation is benefited.
Well, and I kind of see that as even like if we're supposed to be, or we are, the like the salt of the earth, and you know what I mean. Like when we go out and we plant seed, you know, Yeshua he talked about throwing the seed out or whatever.
Yeah.
And the different grounds and different things like that. It just seems like wherever we go, the people who was unrighteous should kind of turn to righteousness or whatever.
That's the point. When you go
because
back
that
up,
seed gets planted.
when you go back up, that's what the call is, right? To go out and
To the captives, to those who are in bondage to sin or afflicted, bound up and brokenhearted.
comfort the mourners.
Yeah.
All of that.
So that's,
Praise for the spirit of heaviness. Now, when we get over to just as something extra to think about, really. When we look at this in verse 8, where it says, "For I, Yahweh, love judgment. I hate robbery for burnt offerings. I will direct my work in truth. I will make an everlasting covenant with them." It's undetermined, obviously, who them is.
yeah.
But when we look in scripture and we see where it literally says everlasting covenant, there's about 18 verses. There's about 18 verses in the Bible where that phraseology is used, everlasting covenant. The first time it's used is in Genesis in regards to Noah's covenant. 9:16. The second time is Genesis 17, verse 7, verse 13, verse 19 in regards to the Abrahamic covenant. The next two times is used in Leviticus 24:8 and 25:13 is in regard to the Levitical covenant. 2 Samuel and 1 Chronicles is used in regards to the Davidic covenant.
We just made that up.
What?
Davidic. I guess it's not.
Oh, it's definitely not made up. Right?
It sounds
He's going to be a king
Forever.
forever, right? That's a covenant, right?
Yeah.
Psalms 105 verse 10 references the Abrahamic covenant.
This is the Abrahamic covenant, isn't it? Because he said that his seed was gonna bless all the nations.
Well, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm getting at. When we get over here, where it references this everlasting covenant,
There's only but like so many covenants it could be talking about.
right? It's not going to be like there's some other
new
thing that it
covenant.
talks about that refers to.
A different covenant.
And when you deal with the Abrahamic covenant, yes, it deals with the actual seed of Abraham, but it also deals with the whole world who will be blessed through Abraham's natural seed. So when we look over here and see this example,
isn't like the church covenant.
I don't know what that is. Actually.
Well, there isn't a church covenant.
Yeah, you just made that up. But what I'm saying is that if we say that when we look at this and we don't know what it's referring to, we could very easily say that if we was to say that they is the nations, it totally fits, because the nations do receive blessings as a result of the Abrahamic covenant. All nations will be blessed because of the Abrahamic covenant. And then we look into what the new covenant does. The new covenant actually builds on the Abrahamic covenant and actually allows for the Abrahamic covenant to be manifest. So the Abrahamic covenant is able to be manifest because of what we see in the new covenant. And then so also when we look at verses like in Jeremiah 32, 39, and 40, which it says, I will give them one heart and one way, that they may fear me forever, for the good of them and for their children after them. I will make an everlasting covenant with them, that I will not turn away from them to do them good, but I will put my fear in their hearts, and they shall not depart from me. That's, of course, referring to the new covenant. We look in Ezekiel 16:60, where it says, nevertheless, I will remember my covenant with thee in the days of thy youth. I will establish unto thee a everlasting covenant. Again, that's referring to the new covenant. So again, we talk about the new covenant. We're talking about the Spirit being poured out. We're talking about the law being placed on the hearts of those that believe in Yeshua. And when we think about the idea that all nations are blessed as a result of it, everybody is able to be blessed by the work that Yeshua has done. So if we were to look at this and try to figure out how nations can be rejoicing because of the profiting of another nation at their own expense, if we put that in the context of the new covenant, with somebody with a changed heart and a changed mind, it's very easy for you to be able to understand how that could be possible.
Yeah, you just can't look at it from a carnal perspective.
Well, no, you can't.
Because you look at it from a carnal perspective, they're going to be like, my stuff just got taken. I'm not really happy about that.
Right, exactly.
But if you look at it like you got saved through your stuff getting taken.
Okay, so let's look at Romans lastly.
All right.
Because we have to have this idea that is totally foreign. It's a foreign concept we look at these things that's going on.
Oh, this is a verse I was talking about without even realizing we was going to talk about it. I could read this as I was talking about the verse.
19 and 39. Read it.
For the anxious longing of the creation waits eagerly for the revealing of the sons of Elohim. For the creation was subjected to futility, not of its own will, but because of him who subjected it in hope, that the creation itself also will be set free from its slavery to corruption into the freedom of the glory of the children of Elohim. For we know that the whole creation groans and suffers the pains of childbirth together until now. And not only this, but also we ourselves, having the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting eagerly for our adoption as sons, the redemption of our body. For in hope we have been saved, but hope that is seen is not hope. For why does one also hope for what he sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, with perseverance, we wait eagerly for it. And in the same way, the Spirit also helps our weakness. For we do not know how to pray as we should, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. And he who searches the heart knows what the mind of the Spirit is, because he intercedes for the saints according to the will of Elohim. And we know that Elohim causes all things to work together for good to those who love Elohim and to those who are called according to his purpose. For whom he foreknew, he also predestined to become conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. And whom he predestined, those he also called. And whom he called, those he also justified. And whom he justified, those he also glorified. What then shall we say? Elohim is for us, who is against us? He who did not spare his own Son, but delivered him up for us all, how will he not also with him freely give us all things? Who will bring a charge against Elohim's elect? Elohim is the one who justifies. Who is the one who condemns? Messiah Yeshua is he who died, yes, rather, who was raised, who is at the right hand of Elohim, who also intercedes for us. Who shall separate us from the love of Messiah? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? Just as it is written, for thy sake we are being put to death all day long. We were considered as sheep to be slaughtered. But in all these things we overwhelmingly conquer through him who loved us. For I am convinced that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor any other created thing shall be able to separate us from the love of Elohim, which is in Yeshua Messiah, our Lord.
Okay, very good. So, when we look at this, we see Paul sitting up here talking about the anxious longing of creation waits eagerly for the revealing of the sons of Elohim. So it's talking about creation eagerly waiting for the revealing of the sons of Elohim, which is referring to those that are experiencing the new covenant. Those that are being transformed internally and changed into the likeness of Yahweh, the likeness of Yeshua. Creation. Verse 21, because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of Elohim. Creation. When we go back and look at Genesis, at the fall of man, something happened with man, something happened with the woman, with
That's serpent.
with the serpent, with Nachash,
And the ground too.
and something happened with the ground.
That's the ground.
All
the ground,
creation,
yeah.
all creation was cursed as a result of transgression. So when we get kind of singularly focused in terms of just dealing with a specific people, we not really dealing with the whole scope of things, because we look at it, Romans 8 and 19 through 22. We're talking about the redemption of creation, the redemption of everything, man, and the land, right? Everything that Yahweh created all needs that redemption. 22 says, "For we know that the whole creation groans and suffers the pains of childbirth together." Right? That means they're going through a thing with this expectation of, some an ease of the pain at the end of it.
Yeah.
It's referring this thing to, the pains of childbirth, right? He could have just said just some pains, like your stomach ache or something, right? But childbirth is about birthing, bringing forth life, right? Where you're going through all that pain and it's hurting, it's this terrible thing. But after it's over, some people want more, right? Some people say, "Oh no, I don't want to have no more babies after that," right? But some people want more, right? But what's interesting there is, hold on, let me see if that's italicized in my book here.
What verse?
Oh no, it ain't. For we know, 22, for we know that the whole creation groans and travails in pain together until now. Until now. Why would he say until now? And then in the very next verse, talking about this hope for the redemption of the body.
Yeah.
The body's not necessarily hasn't reached its full redemption. Your soul is redeemed, but your body's still wicked, right? So he says until now in 22.
We have the first fruits of the Spirit in verse 23. We have the first fruits of the Spirit, and we grown, waiting for our adoption as sons, the redemption of our body.
So why is he saying until now in 22, and then there's something that you're hoping for in 23?
Because we have part of what we need. I don't know about the animals.
Whatever.
The animals of the earth. We have part of what we need, because we have that. We have the Spirit. We have the Holy Spirit, which is Africa. Come on, here. We have the Holy Spirit. Okay, so we have the Holy Spirit, but we're still waiting to be transformed, our physical bodies to be transformed.
Well, I guess that's what he's going into in terms of understanding what really hope is. Yeah. Hope is that I have the first fruits, and that's good enough when we're dealing with hope. If I had the whole thing,
we had the engagement ring.
If I had the whole thing, that's not hope, because you have it. So that's how, when you look at 22, where it talks about until now dealing with the idea that the first fruits have been manifest, and if you see those first fruits, that the rest of the crop is soon to come, waiting for the adoption, to wit the redemption of the body. So again, we look at this whole idea of adoption. which from a Greek perspective is something that they dealt with, and Paul speaking to here, this whole idea of adoption, this word that he literally used, which literally means to the placing as a son. It's a compound word that puts together the idea of to place or to appoint or to commit or to make or ordain or purpose, and the idea of son. So if you're going to ordain a son or purpose a son or set up a son, this is the idea of what we find here with this word in the Greek, that is adoption. So you're dealing with those that are not a son becoming a son. So
that's not necessarily looking at it from. Is that looking at it from a spiritual perspective?
What do you mean?
So to be a son of Elohim,
without even knowing what you mean, I'm going to say yeah, but go ahead.
Well, because to be a son of Elohim doesn't necessarily mean that you're flesh and blood. You know what I mean? Like you got to be spiritually like him.
Yeah, it don't have. Yeah.
So whenever we're talking about this whole, like, cause I've spoken with people and they say they don't necessarily believe in conversion. Even from I think some YouTube commentary, or maybe Hoshea's message. I can't remember what it was, but I remember specifically people saying that they believe that if you're natural Israel or whatever, you don't need conversion or adoption because you're already it. What are you getting converted to? Yeah. What are you getting adopted to? If you're already Israel, how could you be adopted into being Israel?
Well, the issue is that when you're dealing with this adoption, it's twofold. It's dealing with both Israel and Gentiles. Both is both need to be placed as a son, because if we go all the way back, we understand that Israel is the firstborn of Yahweh. But when we go through the history, we see that there was a problem with Israel. And even in one of the everlasting covenant verses that we looked at from Ezekiel 16, verse
one way.
No, that's Jeremiah. But Ezekiel 16 deals with the fact that Israel had literally became a prostitute that was working in reverse. In other words, paying for
services,
for her own services, right? But this is what Israel had became. So Israel got to a place where Yahweh had turned away from his people, but yet in spite of all of that, he says, nevertheless, I will remember my covenant with thee in the days of thy youth, and I will establish unto thee an everlasting covenant. But what people don't understand is that just because he says that, there has to be a way upon which he carries that out. So when we look at what went down with the new covenant, we're able to see that through what Yeshua had done, he's able to both reconcile those that were at one time his people, and also those that were not his people,
but
both at the same time.
But it's an adoption process for both.
It's an adoption process for both.
Because we get
the natural born got cut off.
Yeah, we get the earnest of the spirit, and then we wait until he returns and we become like he is.
That's for both. That's for both of them. Because what we got to understand is that whether you natural born Israel or a Gentile, you still are in a sinful body. Yeah. And that sinful body is still going to cause you to sin. And there ain't no way that you can rectify that situation, no matter how many things you physically do. Right? So when we look over here and look at what Paul's talking about in terms of the fact that all of creation waits for the manifestation of the sons of Elohim, that could be talking about the dirt, and that could be talking about physical people. All creation is looking for the manifestation of what Yahweh said he was going to do in regards to this everlasting covenant that he was going to make, which is the new covenant. So everybody, whether you Israelite or Gentile, needs to become a son again. It needs to deal with this concept of adoption for the redemption of our bodies, because your body is the problem. Your physical body is the problem in the first place. The fact that you got this sinful flesh that is going to cause you to desire to do these things that are contrary to what Yahweh would have for you to do. Your body needs to be redeemed. So now that we have this first fruits, or this earnest of the Spirit that's placed on the inside of us, at least our mind is changed, and our power, we have power placed on the inside of us that allows us to deny this flesh that we still dwell in. But when Yeshua returns, right, that battle is over, where there ain't nothing for it to battle against anymore, because your body is even redeemed. But that's what he's talking about here in verse 23, in terms of the thing that we're looking forward to, where we have the earnest of the Spirit. We got the down payment, we got the seed that's planted, but we still wait for the total manifestation, which is dealing with this hope of this thing that comes in the future. But that's across the board. That's, adoption is for everybody. And if people can't understand that, they missing out on a main kind of a idea that's coming forth in Scripture. The fact that because of this sinful body, because of the thing that happened in the garden, the body needs to be redeemed. There was a way that the relationship was maintained for a time, but there ain't no way for that relationship to be maintained once the temple and all that stuff was destroyed. So these people out here that's in there talking about they don't need to be converted, they don't need to be adopted.
They're already there. They're not there.
Right. That's proof that they need to be.
Still under.
It's proof that they need to be. When you sit up there and say, "Well, I don't need that. I don't need to be converted. I'm Israel." What makes you Israel?
Because you was born Israel. So that puts you under the old covenant,
which you can't keep.
Which you can't do. So what's the point?
Right. Exactly.
Which was already proven that you can't do the old covenant.
Over and over again. Mm-hmm. Right. So
but the redemption is the hope part, that he's coming back.
Right. The redemption of the body. Because when that spirit is placed on the inside of you, your soul, the inner man is redeemed. Yeah. And you're transformed on the inside. Now we wait for that total redemption, the redemption of the body, when it talks about whenever Yeshua returns, however he is, that's how you gonna be. Yeah. That's the redemption of the body, when you no longer have this body of flesh. But until that time, as Paul even talks about in the previous chapter, in terms of this warring that goes on with the inner man. You know what you're supposed to do, but the thing that you're supposed to do, you can't do. Right? This thing that's going on the inside of you is all dealing with the fact that your body needs to be redeemed. Your carnal mind, even though your spiritual mind is supposed to rule over your carnal mind, you still have this carnal mind that still fights and wants to kind of prevail over. And if you're a human being and you want to say that you don't need conversion, then I guess you don't have no problem with your carnal mind. That
because
those individuals they don't have that problem that Paul speaks of here. He's only speaking to the Gentiles, I guess, when he talks about the battle of the carnal mind and walking in the spirit and so on and so forth is only for Gentiles, I suppose. That's what you call being facetious. Okay, so does anybody have any thoughts or comments about any of that stuff?
I don't know.
Okay. So if we go down to verse 28, it talks about, working together for the good of those that love Elohim, to them who are called according to his purpose. I heard an interesting thing the other day about the whole idea of predestination and so on and so forth, because it gets into it here with this in terms of the called and the justified and the glorified and the chosen and so on and so forth. Again, all of these things is dealing with when you look at this whole idea of being called and being chosen and justified and glorified, we put this together with the hope that it spoke of earlier. And then when you even go back further, before we even started looking, the part that we didn't read at the beginning of the chapter, in terms of walking in the spirit, all these things all go together. Those ones that he foreknew, that he predestined to be conformed to the image of his son. When we talk about being conformed to the image of his son, that of course means you actually walking that spirit out. Actually doing the things that he would have for you to do. And those that he predestinated, he called and justified and glorified. Those are the ones who make it all the way to the end. So when we look at this little list of this little thing, it kind of gives you a progression of those that, we're talking, when you think about those that will make it to the end, it's referring to those ones that will make it to the end. It's hard for us to look and recognize that, now, because we see people who, and we see and know people who, they live a life and it's, a seemingly lukewarmish, right? But Yahweh knows the hearts of men, right? And so it's for him to say who those are. Paul's simply making a statement here in regards to that election that's being made. Not to say that we are able to know or determine what that is,
or tell people that they're elected or not elected,
right? Because it's not for us necessarily.
Go around and be like, you're not elected,
right.
You're not right.
I'm gonna sit up here and tell somebody that they're not, one thing or the other, right?
We know people who do that too.
Right, I guess there are people that do that. But what I'm saying is that when you look at 29, it gives you the qualifier of those that are being conformed to the image of his son. So in other words, it looks like something. So conversion looks like something, right? Adoption looks like something, right? There's a response.
What do you say about people who they start coming along and they start converting, then all of a sudden they go off the deep end? Yeah.
Well, I guess it's proof that
you never really converted.
I guess to me it's proof that it wasn't true conversion, right? Because your flesh can only take you so far.
So you can have a desire to want to change,
right? And that desire can be strong, and it lasts for however long that it lasts. But when it don't last, to me, it's just my thought on it. When it doesn't last, it's proof that it wasn't authentic to begin with.
Or it wasn't rooted enough.
It was planted in some soil that
right. So to me, that's saying the same thing. So that seed got planted in some shallow ground and wasn't able to take root. Which I'm saying that is an example of not being authentic. And then it wasn't put into that ground that was conducive for growth.
But when I have seen people that converted and it wasn't, and it was shaky, but then they started getting back into the word, and then they realized where their stump was, and was being able to exactly. Because sometimes you think.
To me, I think like that's a difference though. When you see somebody who's kind of rocky, but then you can see that progression, how they had a season of rockiness, but they was able to overcome and work through it. So that's an example of there actually being some roots, in the ground that's given you might have a period of, but that person who's in that shallow ground season is going to destroy that person, right? So that's why you can't look at somebody out there right now and say, that person is, you know what I mean? Because your right now don't really define, who you are. Because if that's the case, we can count a whole bunch of people off the list, right? But I think what we look at when we see this is that even that how Paul takes it all the way to the end, and all these things that ain't able to separate you. When that seed is planted in that good ground, none of those things is able to separate you. But when that seed is on shallow ground, these things will definitely separate you. But for sure, I think it is hard to be able to look at somebody and see based on what they're doing and make some kind of determination as to you could look at somebody and tell somebody that they definitely you stepping out of bounds but I'm not going to condemn you to hell because what I mean. If you go along, if you continue on a route that's leading to the proof is evident about what you're doing, which just goes to show that again that thing that you said you was doing initially wasn't really what we could take it all the way back to what we was looking at before. The Amalekites heard what Yahweh did, and Jethro heard what Yahweh did. They had a response to what Yahweh did, and Jethro had a response to what Yahweh did. And it wasn't the same response. When you have a true, authentic conversion, your life is a progression. It should be a progression of you moving forward towards Yahweh, getting closer and continually forsaking those things that are not of him. Anything else is
it really kind of upsets me that people actually they try to use the scriptures. Like they could forsake something for so long, and then they'll try to use the scriptures to try to justify.
I don't know what you mean.
Like, I mean, I'm just saying, like, well, I guess gross iniquity. There is no justification for that. I mean, we just know people. I mean, I'm talking specifically people who are trying to get onto the whole polygamy thing. You know, they had a problem and they got that problem resolved, and now because they feel like the scriptures is allowing for their lust, you know what I mean? It's like they're picking it back up again because they feel like the scripture is allowing for their lust. You know, and it's really sad to me, you know, you trying to use the scriptures to justify lust, or just using the scriptures to justify anything. I don't want to be subject to the laws of the land, so I'm going to go out here and cheat the government, you know. Or, you know what I mean? And I'm cheating the government. I'm acting in a fraudulent way.
Yeah.
However, to try to justify what you're doing,
which doesn't make sense because things have to be able to go and they have to be in line with the character of Yahweh.
Yeah.
If I'm going to sit up here and say I am a follower of Yeshua, but my actions don't reflect that, then something got to be questioned. Something got to come under question. You know what I mean? And that's where a lot of these people are.
It's like a character. It's like sometimes I see people and their character comes out. You know what I mean? Like that old character comes out.
Yeah. Or never didn't go nowhere in the first place.
Or, you know, but
I think that was an important thing that we seen from what happened with Isaiah where and then even Moses was brought up as where there's a way that you are before having an intimate relationship with Yahweh. And then there's a way that you are after he touched you. And those two ways ain't the same.
You don't continue on in those old ways.
You might fall back into every once in a while Moses who fell back into his rage and anger a couple of times, right? But for the most part, there wasn't nobody that was more humble than Moses, right?
Until he got really mad.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
The point is that
true
conversion. The point is, the true conversion changes you. It changes you. It takes you away from what you used to be and turns you into something else.
As well.
Yeah.
Right. It brings, but that's part of it. It convicts you. When you continue in those ways that you're used to and that you're comfortable at, that's where conviction comes. Where it wants to send you in another direction.
I mean, maybe that's a question that I might start asking people. Like, if they start talking to me about something that's just, you know, if it sounds fraudulent or wrong, I'll just say, well, do you feel any conviction about that? Because
that's not always the answer, though. That's not always the answer.
A lot of times,
because they'll probably say, no, I don't feel no conviction about it.
Right.
And that's what they'll get you at. Well, when I feel convicted, I'll do it. If I feel led to do it, then I'll do it. Right? But if you never really had a real conversion experience and you ain't even hearing from Yahweh to begin with,
you're not gonna get converted.
You ain't never gonna be led because he ain't leading you to begin with. Potentially, I'm saying.
Right.
I mean, I'm saying I ain't saying don't ask somebody that, but what I'm saying
is that if
you're
they
not necessarily gonna get the right answer.
But really, the thing is that if they was being, you know, led by the Spirit or whatever, they had that Spirit dwelling inside them, they had experienced that conversion. I mean, when I talk to people and they say they don't believe in conversion, I've spoken to a few people who said that to me. I just already know that it's just no point in even having that conversation because you don't believe. You don't believe in a conversion of your soul.
That's
you believe that you can somehow make decisions to serve Yahweh in and of yourself. That means you don't need Yeshua.
Right.
That means you could do it by yourself if you don't need conversion.
He just came for.
I don't know what he came to do. I mean, he came to cleanse the slime or whatever. But yeah. I mean, it's just really sad to me when I'm talking to people that they do try to use the scriptures to justify, or they just, I mean, some things they can't even really justify with the scriptures, but it's kind of like, okay, well, that's not what that says right there.
Yeah. All right. So, I guess just to be done, just thinking about the idea of the fact that Yahweh, through having an understanding of who He is and seeing, His essence and His nature, or hearing it or getting to understand it, leads us towards conversion and towards change, towards turning away from our old life into a new life, turns us into the place of becoming a son, whether it's becoming a son again or becoming a son for the first time. Either way, that's an intricate part in the situation.
And I think that when people actually really do get converted or changed, it's not something that you have to even have a conversation with them about stuff. Like that spirit is going to be doing that work inside of them. You know what I mean? Like they should already be convicted.
Well,
what you said.
I think
that it shouldn't be something that somebody got on the outside got to be like, well, how you feel about
but sometimes even though you might be hearing something from Yahweh, it might also take somebody who's also hearing from Yahweh to be a witness to the thing that's going on inside of you. As where Yahweh told you to do this, but you ain't been doing it, and then for some reason somebody comes along and says, you probably should be doing this, and you're like, well, yeah, Yahweh did tell me I should be doing it. You know what I mean?
Where that's like to have accountability,
right?
People in your life,
yes,
because that's how you do go astray when you don't have that in your life. And even when you were speaking about the elite, I was just talking to a female the other day, and she was studying with someone, and she said to me that the person they was doing communion, and that the person told them, if you feel that you're one of the 144,000, then you can partake of this. Yeah. But if you're not, then you need to put that down. And I'm like, well, what kind of teaching is that?
Such a Jehovah's
they wasn't a Jehovah's Witness. That's the first person that came to in my mind.
Yeah, because they came off the 144,000.
Yeah, but
even though they already got the 144,000.
Right. I mean, to me, I would say in regards to that, I would probably say almost the same thing, but I want to use the numbers because you know what I mean. If you think that if you already a part of Yeshua's body, then take it. But if you ain't part of Yeshua's body, then don't take it. I would have said the same thing without saying 144,000. You know what I mean? Because when you in communion, when you take in Yeshua's body and His blood, it's a picture of the relationship that you already had. It's not a picture. It's not kind of the introduction to Him. It's kind of a celebration of what you're already in. So if you're not part of His body, then you shouldn't be eating His body, right? That's what Paul talks about in terms of.
But I feel that when you get communion, you should explain what it is as well. Because if somebody asked me that, I was like, I don't know, I'm in. Even if I wasn't in, you're telling me if I think I am. Yeah, I'm thinking I don't care what I'm doing, I'm in.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of people, when you go out there and you talk to a lot of people don't know. Right. And we just assume that everybody knows
Yep.
the word. Everybody knows the characteristic of Yahweh. Or we and they
can't assume. You can't assume
and
anything.
they don't. You start asking questions, and even with myself, it took me a lot of times. Like, where did this come from? You know, start learning the different things. Just like even today, before I got here, and I was reading God's master plan, and he was showing me all speaking on the seven, the number 7, and showing the steps to his master plan. And when I started reading it, I was like literally crying because that was something I wasn't really with my heart into it. But when I started reading about the Pentecostal and the Passover and the unleavened bread and what each thing really, really, truly meant, each chapter, and he went into those deep verses and stuff, then this started hitting me. Because before it was just like, okay, them was just words. But until God started pressing it into your heart. You know, even today when I was so happy, I thought I was going to get it on time. I'm like, okay, your procrastination. What do? I hit traffic on 51. They doing some road work on there.
On 51.
And I'm like, look, I'm trying to be on time, and I still can't. So, I mean, he's been really working with me. And so I know there's the things that I can't say that I'm there, I've arrived.
I know I haven't arrived.
And I still don't mess up because I do. I will be totally lying that I don't get convicted. I don't get a spanking from the Most High. Tear me up. You know, even today, you know, just sitting there and you've been messing up. And the book was right there on the table. I need you, and opened it up. And I was like, and I sat there this morning and I was like, wow, God, I'm not following you for real, like I should be. And that's the thing that you have to search your own heart about.
People can't talk to you. The spirit got to be
exactly. And then
Well, people, that's the thing. We, as a body, right? We act like can't nobody say nothing to us, but that's not.
And we should
that's
have
not the
people to talk to
dynamic.
us.
That's not the dynamic that Paul talks about.
Right.
It's a body, you know, with arms and feet and legs and necks and everything else.
Right.
And you know, you got a foot over here and hands over there and so on and so forth. Where, you know, yes, you should be able to hear from Yahweh your own self. But also you should be able to hear Yahweh in your brother and sister when they telling you about your own self, and not be prideful and say, well, I'm just gonna do whatever. You know what I mean?
Right. Or they don't talk to you at all. Some people let you just
they just let you go
out there and do what you want to do, and then talk about you to somebody else.
Right.
Like, did you see it?
But in relation to what you were saying in terms of, you know, you having these different kind of unctionings through the spirit, and you recognizing that y'all is saying for you to do this or that, right? You jamming yourself up when you come to that realization, and then there ain't no follow through.
Right, exactly.
Right, so you better off just being ignorant than actually recognizing that y'all always saying for you to do ABC, and you're not doing ABC.
Right.
Like
because it don't say how many times I'm gonna come to you.
The proof of conversion is you actually, and when you get to the point of being able to hear what he's saying, is actually doing what he's saying.
Exactly. And that's for me. I have to read. And I'm like, man, you know, you're wrong. And that's it.
Okay, then. All right, then. So, with that in mind, if somebody has anything else to add, we're going to go ahead and stop this thing for now.